We'll continue by introducing the concept of formulas. When an attribute or a variable's value can be calculated based on the value of other attributes, constants, or functions, then it can be defined as a formula. Let's take a few minutes to talk about some general ideas about formulas. Formulas are classified into one of three categories. We can classify them as horizontal formulas when we are dealing with one or more arithmetic expressions, as aggregate formulas, which include sum, count, average, max, min, and find, and compound formulas, when dealing with a set of horizontal and/or aggregate expressions. It's important to mention that all the formulas allow for the use of triggering conditions. Formulas can be defined globally, which means that they are defined at the knowledge base level, or they can be defined locally, at an object's code level. When an attribute is defined as a formula, it will not be stored in the database. It will be a virtual attribute. The value of this attribute will be calculated each time an object that contains this attribute is called. As a result of this, the displayed value will always be up to date. We return to RKB and will implement a new requirement. We'd like to display the number of tourist attractions in each country. So we'll add a new attribute to our country transaction, which we'll define as a count formula. So let's go to the folder Objects and open our country transaction. We'll define a new attribute which will be a numeric 4. We save the changes, and in order to define it as a formula, we'll position our pointer below this formula column, and we'll open the formula editor. And we define it as count, parentheses, we insert the attribute, attraction name, and close the parentheses. We see that our new attribute has been assigned the formula icon. One question that might come to mind is, how does GeneXus know it's supposed to count that specific country's tourist attractions and not the attractions of all the countries? The answer is quite simple. GeneXus knows all of the relationships that exist between the data, and therefore it knows that a tourist attraction belongs to a specific city and country. So each country-city pair belongs to a single country. So that is enough for it to know how to calculate this. We've defined this formula globally. If any object containing this attribute is called, this calculation will be triggered in memory. Before we execute our application, we still need to modify our pattern instance so that it will display our attribute. So if we go to our pattern instance, the attribute was automatically added. So we can save our changes and execute our application. Did you realize that the process we just ran did not ask us to reorganize? Why is that? This is because although we added a new attribute, we defined that attribute as a formula, so it isn't a physical attribute in the database. Now we'll go ahead and execute our pattern. And we can see the new column displaying the number of attractions per country. Let's enter a tourist attraction for Egypt, and we'll see that this value will be updated. We'll return to the Developer menu and open the attraction transaction, and let's define the attraction pyramids It's of type building, rock structures, and we'll search for its image. We say that it belongs to Egypt, to the city of Cairo. We confirm our data and return to the developer menu. We open our pattern once again, and now we see that Egypt has one tourist attraction. Let's take a look at an example of a local definition of